If you've seen anything about Endzone, A World Apart, it's probably something along the lines of, it's like Banished, but better. I can see the resemblance, as I'm sure you will too, but there are a lot of differences, both in difficulty and in gameplay. But safe to say, I am having more fun with this game than I did with Banished, probably because my entire town doesn't die in the first year. But there are other natural phenomena that you will have to look out for, especially since the game likes to be a dick and tries to kill you. We'll get into that. But let's start from the beginning. Endzone is a post-apocalyptic colony survival game. The general premise is trying to keep everyone fed and equipped with protective gear to survive the lingering radiation. Starting up the survival mode, you'll be able to fine-tune almost everything to make your experience as relaxed or challenging as you'd want, and that's already a big positive for the game. It can be anywhere from a cakewalk to absolute hell, with the default settings being a great starting point. You can see there's an option for directors for some of the disasters. Remember these for later, but let's get into the game. You start with nothing except for bus wreckage, which holds a good amount of supplies to get you started. You'll need food and water to keep your people alive, but to build structures, you're also going to need resources. Wood and scrap are going to be the most common building materials, and in most cases for low-tech buildings, they're all you're going to need. So we build a jetty for our people to collect water, a cistern to store it, a fishing hut next to it to catch food, a scrapyard to scavenge scrap, and a forester's lodge to cut wood, along with connecting all of them via roads. Roads aren't required, but they make your people move faster when walking on them. Gathering facilities, like forester lodges and scrapyards, have collection areas you need to manually place to tell them where to cut and scavenge at. Though loggers are usually set and forget due to them being able to replant trees for a constant supply of lumber, scrap collectors will need to be periodically reset to a fresh area. We hop over to the Professions tab and start assigning people to the builder profession to start constructing our collection buildings, and we've already run into a problem. We have 10 people, but after all of this is built, we'll need 14 to fully staff all of the buildings. Food and water keeps our people alive, but if we don't have any construction materials, we're not going to be able to expand. Decide the best way to divvy up your workers and start stockpiling. Now we have another two problems we need to address. The first being that our people need homes, else they'll stay exposed to the elements, and homes are the only way they'll be able to start families and grow your town. This shelter can house up to 25 people, but they can't start families in them, so we'll need some cabins instead, even though they house significantly less people. Our second issue is our dwindling stock of tools and protective gear. Without tools, our workers will receive a massive penalty to their productivity, and without protective gear, our people's health will decline, and they can even get sick with radiation poisoning, which leads to a very short life. We need to get a workshop for tools and a tailor shop for protective gear, but to get those, we'll need cloth and metal. We'll get those by constructing a recycler and employing workers to sort through our scrap to pick out bits of metal and cloth, as well as some other resources we'll need later on. But there's a catch. With a recycler, workers can only pick out a single resource, meaning we'll either have to wait long periods of time to get what we need, or we'll need to build more of them, keeping in mind that we don't have enough people to fill the positions we have now. Building housing, there's another thing we'll need to take into account. Our production facilities are ugly. Hideous, even. They're so disgusting that building houses near them will cause the families that live there to have a negative happiness penalty. So we'll take care to build them a sufficient distance away. Also keeping in mind that our colony will eventually expand quite a bit, so we don't want to put too much distance between things, else the walking times will severely hurt production. We're only just beginning, and we've already encountered one of the disasters, irradiated rain. Though our people do have protective clothing that should be able to keep them from getting sick by it, radiation levels can increase, and lower-tier protective gear can't prevent the person from getting sick by it. So be sure to keep an eye on radiation levels in the areas your people travel, as well as making sure you always have high enough level gear to keep them safe. Right after our irradiated rainfall, we're now getting another disaster, a drought. This comes with all of the bad you can probably guess. No water for crops unless you have irrigation set up, no rainwater for your collectors, dried up ponds and lakes, no forageable food, and decreased well water production. There's also sandstorms that will move radiation around the map, slow your people down, and cause damage to buildings that you'll have to repair. I told you to remember those directors and that the game liked to be a dick and try to kill you. One disaster after another right at the beginning of your game is sufficient proof of this. Trust me, it can get really hard, really fast. Should your people's health start to decline, it's probably time to build an herbalist's hut. They'll collect some plants for people to consume, increasing their health and making them happier. Something else you might have noticed, or were told by your people, is that some of your food or water is irradiated. You'll know where the irradiated sustenance is because the building that holds it will have this icon over it. To remedy this, we'll need a decontamination post. It'll craft decontamination kits that'll be used to purify the irradiated food. But it requires some resources we haven't needed yet. Plastic and charcoal. Plastic is easily obtained just like metal and cloth, through your recyclers, but charcoal will need a building of its own, a charcoal kiln. Charcoal is the main filtration medium used in the game. It'll also be used in water towers and for crafting the later tier protective gear, so it's worth getting sooner rather than later. On higher difficulties, you may want to build a trading post around now as well, but the default difficulty doesn't strain things enough to make it too high of a priority. Our population rises, the city expands, we transitioned into farming, and somewhat stabilized our stock of resources. And we have people to spare. But we just can't keep up with the amount of crafting that needs to be done, as is evident by our tools and protective gear. Now it's time to start looking into expeditions and technology to remedy this problem. Actually, it was time to start doing that a while ago. But I've been watching Steve Wallace stealth camp in an airport parking lot on YouTube, so time got away from me a little bit. If you have to choose between expeditions or technology rather than doing them both together, go with expeditions first. The reason why will be revealed soon. But before we get started with that, let's solve our overpopulation problem. We'll build a forum. You can see that we have 2 spaces for issuing decrees. That's exactly what we're going to need, and you'll also notice the bulletin board beneath it. These are things that your population needs, wants, or is suffering from. They come in the form of missions, which if you complete, you'll get some sort of reward. For now, let's go to the decrees. Your initial decrees are basically all ways to get yourself out of an emergency. For now, we want to institute birth control, disallowing any babies to be conceived. That won't solve our overpopulation immediately, but once the elderly start dying off, it'll solve itself. We're a benevolent leader. No, wait, malevolent. Back to expeditions. We'll open up the expeditions map via the expedition building, and we'll get an overview of all the interesting locations our area has. Now we have to scout these locations before we can actually send an expedition to search the area. So let's go ahead and send out as many as possible to the closest locations. And we just wait for them to return, while getting blasted by a sandstorm, during a drought, after constant irradiated rain. This game is a dick. We'll get a notification that our scout has finished scouting, and now we can set up expeditions. Most locations, like this one, will give you an overview of what you can expect to find in that location. But there's also locations like this one where you'll want to send scouts with particular skills and extra rations for searching the building even deeper. Let's take a look at how that works. Here it shows that people with these particular skills will have an advantage while searching the area. Try to hit all of those. I can't because my people are all stupid as I never built a school. We could just cancel the expedition and go somewhere else, or wait until a school is built and one of our people gains the educated perk, but it's not that big of a deal, so we'll go ahead with it. Also, action points. These are granted in the form of rations, so be sure to send them with enough for any extra spelunking that needs to be done. And of course, tools and protective gear. Protective gear being the most helpful in my opinion. We're lacking both of those right now, but this is just one expedition to show it off, so we'll go ahead anyways. Now that they've arrived, we'll get a radio call asking for guidance. They're already complaining about the radiation. We really should have waited and got them some better equipment, but no turning back now. They could, but we're not going to let them. We can search different areas of the building, and here in the turbine building, there are research utensils. We definitely want those, so let's start there. Here we have to use our first action point, but their confidence is shaky. Unfortunately, without better gear, they're going to fail their task, and now they're all irradiated. I'm sure they'll be fine. Let's keep searching. They completed this task, and we found some really good stuff. A knowledge point, which is used by researchers to acquire new technologies, those research utensils, and some electrical components, something we'll need very soon. Let's check as many more places as we can. We've run out of rations, so we can't do any more actions that require them, but we can still check out what we found. Looks like we can take everything we found back in one go. Also, all of our people were supposed to be irradiated and hurt, but none of them are. I think we just found a bug. Let's put that knowledge and those research utensils to work and check out technology. That's not a very expansive tech tree, but it is an expensive tech tree. Bottom left icon shows what research level we're at. We'll have to find better utensils to research the most high-tech things. The honeycomb icon to its right is how many knowledge points we have, aka thought dollars. Thought, not thought. And to the right of that one is how many researchers we have. The tab next to that shows our uneducated and educated researchers. Again, no school, so they're all dumb. And whether or not we have electricity flowing to the building. This will help a ton with research speeds, as it does with general productivity for almost every other building. Let's go ahead and research electronics so we can get started on the path to electricity. Research also requires resources as well as time, so let's wait for it to finish. And done. With this amazing new technology, we can build literally nothing new. But now we can collect electrical components from scrap in our recyclers. That, and it was the tech we needed before we could research electricity production facilities. I'm going to correct my overpopulation one dead citizen at a time, and also learn them some books so the next time we go to a nuclear power generator, they don't try to open the doors with their teeth. There we go. We got old people dropping like they got the coof. I feel like Cuomo. Tasteless joke, sure, but out here in the wasteland, you get hard. The damn director didn't like that joke either because they just sent a sandstorm that ravaged almost everything I have. Also immediately after a drought. This game's a dick. At least this is a learning experience though. Since no one has a fucking house right now, they're all mad. This can lead to crime, severely reduced productivity, and eventually revolt. During our wait for the old to die young, our researchers have gained us a few more knowledge points. We're going to forego continuing the electricity route for just a moment, and instead get the refinery. This thing is a recycler on steroids. It employs far more people, and they sort out all of the resources faster and at the same time, instead of just one. Definitely something you'll want to make a priority. And this seems like a good point to conclude the starter's guide. You've done pretty much everything that needs to be done to get your colony into a state of self-sustainment. Just keep sending out expeditions and researching until you get to electricity. Then you'll see just how annoying it is to try and build electrical poles everywhere when you've designed your colony to be as compact as possible. I feel as though this is also a great way to review the game as well. Even though we didn't go through everything you can possibly do and get, it still really shows off how the game is, plays, and feels. Like I said in the beginning, if you've heard anything about this game, it's probably that it's like Banished, but better. And I genuinely agree with that motion. While the game isn't a carbon copy of Banished, and not even really what I would consider a spiritual successor, it still gives off the same vibes. Except, of course, that I have a problem with overpopulation as opposed to my time with Banished, where instead I had a problem with everyone dying immediately. And the best part about the game is, if you think it's too easy or too hard, you can change almost every possible aspect of the game. So you get to make it as hard or easy as you want. If you like this style of game, you'll like Endzone. It's even worth its full price, if you can't get it on sale. But that wraps it up for this one. If you made it this far into the video, please remember to leave a like. If you want to show some support by purchasing any of the awesome games on my Nexus page for the exact same price you'll get it anywhere else, check out the link in the description of this video. And if you want to see content like this and more, subscribe to the channel. This is Mitchell Godsend. Have a good one. Also, go watch my Sons of a Solar Empire video because what the hell happened there?